I'm delighted to be with you this morning. This morning, I want to share with you a perspective on living in the world that is a greatness that now it's my turn to have glitches. Hang on. Sharing a perspective on living in the world that many, if not most of you, have already embraced. But I believe that it's important to remind ourselves fairly often about this perspective because it's a reliable and necessary platform for values and our behavior. The way we see ourselves, the way we see others, and the way we see the world guides our actions in every waking moment of our lives. This platform encompasses what we have come to understand and stand by in our lives. So it needs to be real, to have been tested, to be honest, to be trustworthy, to be capable of being shared, understood, appreciated, and hopefully capable of being experienced by others. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity at the University of Chicago Divinity School to learn from Paul Tillich, one of the foremost theologians of the 20th century. One of the major steps that Tillich took in his extensive work was to translate traditional religious language with its more literal bent into language and expressions that fit more closely to contemporary understanding and experience of human nature and living in the world. He taught us how to treat religious language metaphorically in order to convey deep meanings about life. In an article he wrote for the Saturday Evening Post called The Lost Dimension in Religion, Tillich wrote, quote, "Being religious means asking passionately the question of the meaning of our existence and being willing to receive answers, even if the answers hurt. It is the state of being personally and deeply concerned about one's own being and being universally. But people," he said, "have lost the dimension of depth in religion." He says, depth in religion means asking the questions, what is the meaning of life? Where do we come from? Where do we go? What shall we do? What should we become in the short stretch between birth and death? He equates being religious with being spiritual, and both focusing on seeking answers and living into the deep questions of life. For me, going deep means we look back as far as we can in our past to gain the best historical perspective that we can. We look at the current political, economic, and cultural ramifications of where we are, and we look as best we can on the impact of our choices, not on just the immediate situation, but on the impact of our actions for generations to come. We expand the context of our understanding and vision as broadly and deeply as we can. And we make decisions not only in terms of their impact upon us individually, or on our family, or our community, or our state, or our nation, but on their impact globally and universally. You have to go deep to find the depths of our life, the source of our being, what we take seriously without any reservation. We find the transcendent by going deep, what Tillich refers to as finding ultimate concern. Without undergoing this search for meaning, Tillich said, The state of our whole life is estrangement from others and ourselves, because we are estranged from the ground of our being, because we are estranged from the origin and aim of our life, and we do not know where we have come from or where we are going. We are separated from the mystery, the depth, and the greatness of our existence. We hear the voice of that depth, but our ears are closed. Many of us grew up in Christian churches that attempted to answer these questions by providing us with a body of teachings and practices to which we were expected to conform. It was more a matter of right belief. Belief was necessary and expected. God was in charge. The image I had of God was of a supernatural being outside the universe and looking in. God was up there, literally. He was a bearded, elderly white male in flowing robes who watched over his creation. He was sometimes loving, sometimes angry. He built or created and ran a 3-story universe with heaven, earth, and hell. God wanted me to be good, but he knew that I would be bad. So he sent his son into the world to show me how to live a better life and to save me from my sins by dying on the cross. After he died, God brought him back to life so that we would know that he was God's son. Some of this got confusing. The stuff about atonement and dying for my sins on the cross and resurrection and the presence of evil in the world and the reality of the devil. I also learned that if I was a good person in this life, that I would go to heaven and be with God and my loved ones in eternity. I learned that church was a place where I went to worship God in his holiness, to be closer to God, and to learn how to be a better person. I learned that I should share the good news, the gospel, with others and try to convert others to Christ and to his church. We all learned that the Bible was the Word of God. That was what the Bible was, the truth, all of it, and was all that mattered. This was powerful stuff, which I took seriously, and I believed almost all of it until I reached my teens. Science and reason and the study of literature began to transform the way I looked at the world. Gradually, the influences of my education began to reshape my thinking and my experience. But even though I began to accept this new understanding cerebrally, I still retained deep down the mental image of the old man in the sky and the other stuff that went with it. Tradition is a powerful force. The authoritative voice of the church, the inerrancy of scripture, the shared life with other believers, all reinforced my beliefs. These were the authorities that gave me the truth, a truth that was unchanging. And of course, there are many, many, many people today who continue to hold these or related views. Learning about evolution, about historical relativism, about other religions, all were powerful forces throwing these old authorities and these old beliefs into question. Gradually, I learned to deny these old authorities and discovered more about what Tillich described as the mystery, depth, and greatness of our lives, an honest and more realistic and authentic view of me and my world. Here's what I think we human beings have pieced together so far about these realities of the world we live in. Reality is a mystery. The ground of our being is a mystery. We do not have scientific or religious or moral knowledge in our possession that can fulfill our desire for absolute certainty. We are here on our own, without clear explanation or expectation about the future. The future is not secure. Nothing is promised. Our world and our universe are far beyond our control. You know, we live on a very fragile planet, which has been around for about 4.5 billion years. We live on a planet that's not dead. The Earth is still alive. We just talked about volcanoes in Iceland, with all kinds of natural forces that continue to shape and sometimes destroy living things, including human life. Pompeii was fully destroyed by a volcanic eruption in 79 AD. Tsunami in 2004 in Indonesia and Sumatra killed over 200,000 people. There are over 1,200 tsunamis that we've recorded in history. Earthquakes every year all over the world kill thousands. Floods across the world have killed millions and devastated thousands of cities. Suffering appears to be a natural part of life. Death is a basic reality, sometimes even for innocent children. Scientists believe that about 13.7 billion years ago, a powerful explosion called the Big Bang happened, creating an expanding universe. No one knows how big the universe is. The scientist astronomer Carl Sagan, before he died in 1996, used to grandiosely tell us in his TV appearances, there are billions and billions of stars in the universe. Now, a recent National Geographic article on the universe and galaxies said, because of our growing ability to see into deep space, that there are 100 to 400 billion stars in our galaxy alone. And there are 100 billion galaxies, each with billions of stars. How much is a billion? A million is 1,000 thousands. A billion is 1,000 millions. Awesome. Some of these galaxies are over 13 billion years old, and it has taken billions of years for the light from them to reach us. That is a greatness that is almost incomprehensible and well worth our pondering. When I typed this sermon, I mistakenly typed great mess instead of greatness. Well, that's the topic for another sermon, the great mess. We humans are relative newcomers on this planet. Since we first evolved 1 million years or so ago in Africa, we've wandered and explored our way across the planet. Early humans without spoken language were without explanations for what they experienced. They had to come to terms as best they could with a wild planet, a planet not unlike ours, with lightning, fires, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, hurricanes and tornadoes, tsunamis and floods that destroyed and killed. They were quite limited in their view of the universe to what they could see with the naked eye. They experienced enormous powers over which they had no control, including their own deaths and the death of others. Only until they began to develop language, first in the form of gestures and sounds, then in the form of narrative and the capacity of imagination and the capacity to tell stories, could they account for what they were experiencing. And we know from so many documents and archaeological research that it was so easy to personify these powers, to attribute to those powers characteristics like our own. Over time, there developed a strong view of divine providence, that supernatural beings were ultimately in control, directing world events, and required human worship, obedience, and sometimes human sacrifice to appease. And as I mentioned earlier, there are many, many people today who continue to hold to these or related views. However, our Unitarian forebears with others, learning about evolution, about historical relativism, about biblical analysis, about other religions, shared powerful emerging insights, throwing these old authorities and these old beliefs into question. As a consequence of their work and that of others, we have a growing awareness of the wholeness of the universe, the mystery, depth, and greatness of our existence, and a sense of oneness and deep interdependence with the natural world. We've achieved hard-won understandings of the world. We've tackled a complexity that we can't understand all at once. There is so much that we do not know and much that we will probably never know. The world continues to be filled with mystery. Just look at your hand, what it is capable of. It has taken over 350 million years to come from that gutsy, breathing fish that crawled out of the ooze to us. Can you fathom how long that is to get to where we are? In the words of the poet Carl Sandburg, and excuse the gender language, man is a long time coming. We need to remind ourselves more often of this fact. The evidence is quite overwhelming. How can anyone take their humanity lightly, knowing this, knowing how long and through so much change we have come to be here today? There are times when I'm brought to tears thinking more deeply about what Darwin called the descent of man. What do we do with this treasure, this gift, this awesome gift of life? Bernard Maitland, one of my theology professors at Chicago, talked about appreciative awareness. If you take the traditional God out of the picture, take this three-story universe out, and have what he referred to as a naturalistic religion, a religion not supernatural, but natural, based on what we can experience. Appreciative awareness affirms that life itself is a gift, and it's all there is. We don't need anything more. Each of us is an unrepeatable gift, and the universe itself is awe-inspiring, continually creating, continually sustaining, and continually redeeming through the emergence and development of life itself and our efforts at growing civilization. On February 14th, 1990, while on its way out of the solar system, Voyager 1 turned around to take a photo of the Earth, this pale blue dot, so minuscule on the photo. It took this picture from 33.1 billion miles away. Carl Sagan, speaking at Cornell University in 1994, spoke about this photo. From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest, but for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. In our obscurity and all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. As a still point in our turning world, as a platform for guiding our actions in the world, let us seek out, embrace, share, and celebrate the mystery, depth, and greatness of life. Everything is holy now. May it be so.